Under the Scope. Hey, Scope fans, Jared and Shane here with another Scope movie review. This time around, we take aim at MTV Films'. I think that's how you say it.
Films'?
MTV Films' Project Almanac.
It's a found footage film.
It is.
Apparently that's a thing now. It's a genre.
It is its own genre. This was directed by David Israelite.
Yeah.
Interesting last name. And one of the 2 or 3 producers of the film is actually Michael Bay. Thankfully, it does not really play like a Michael Bay film, that's good.
Not everything is blowing up at a moment's notice.
Yes. But as Jared said, it is a found footage film. You might have seen commercials for it. Might have seen movie trailers for it. It is a time travel, late teenager type of time travel movie. And it stars a lot of people that we don't really recognize.
The only one I recognize is
his friend guy.
Yeah, which one?
And the Asian American kid.
Okay, yep. Yeah, I've seen him before. What has he been in?
We've seen him before, and then the teacher, the science teacher's been in a million things.
Okay, and then the mother, if you've watched Amazon Instant Videos, Transparent, Amy Landecker, she's one of the kids in there. She plays the mom in this one.
Gotcha.
So I recognize her from that.
Yeah, she didn't have a really big role in this, but Jared, this is the time of our review in which you sort of give an overview, so have at it, chump.
All right, so we sort of meet our lead character. Is it David? David Rankin and his sister. I don't remember her name.
Yeah.
He is applying to MIT, trying to do his entrance video, and he has his team of jolly cohorts.
Yep.
Wisecracken. Yep. They're making with the science, and apparently things happened. He sends off his application. He ends up getting approved to go to MIT, but not for all of the scholarship money he hoped for.
Yep.
So the quest for money for school begins. He's searching around the house. Apparently his dad has passed away when he was 10 years ago.
Super smart guy.
When you're doing time travel, nice even numbers. That's the key. Dad was a scientist, so he's rummaging around the house hoping to find something he can do for an additional scholarship application. It's all very vague.
Yeah.
Eventually they end up in the basement and they make a discovery. And what did they discover, Shane?
They discover that there are pieces for a time machine that apparently his father, who is a super smart guy, must have been doing work with the government. They don't really get into it.
It's very vague and very...
Maybe intentionally so.
Very faux techy.
Yeah.
I think if you don't want to press it too hard because it's going to fall apart, the tech and the language and the science of it, because it's just a bunch of fabrications.
I think we can get into that because I think that's a key component of the film.
So obviously it's not spoiling anything that they managed to figure out this time machine. They put it together and they start traveling through time. First it's only a few minutes, then it's hours, then weeks, and eventually David, because he's a smarty pants, manages to tweak the machine enough to push it even further. Yeah,
and we also didn't mention that David has the key motivating factor in this film. He's got a girl that he's got a crush on, and she eventually sort of comes into the group through happenstance.
Happenstance is the best way to put it, because otherwise it doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah, and then so she's a part of this Project Almanac as well.
Jessie is her
name, and so she starts traveling with these guys as well. They make some rules early on: never travel by yourself,
which you know is going to get broken.
Always record everything,
which is really strange.
But they do that because you have to have a movie,
right?
And we can talk about. I think the 2 things we really need to talk about in this after we get done with the summary, which we're almost there, is the issue of found footage, and then also the issue of the technology of the film, or the technology presented in the film as science, because I think that it sort of pushes, and sort of the science of time travel and the science of building the time machine. You have to have tremendous leaps of faith and breaks in logic to buy into it.
If you don't, the entire film crumbles.
Yeah. I mean, so anyway, yes. So David and Jesse and his gang, they start going through time, and like I've said before,
they come back and they start noticing things have changed.
Yeah, slight little things. You can call it a ripple effect or a butterfly effect or whatever, things that could possibly happen in time travel. And then
thus the crux of our story begins.
And then we've maybe got to fix these things.
Well, maybe. You never know. So maybe they'll just let them be.
So let's talk about this. Okay. Early on, I could tell that you were a bit annoyed by... Well, let's not... I was going to start technology. Let's start with the issue of found footage films. We saw one of the first, Blair Witch Project, and we love that.
If not the first.
We love that film.
At least on the national stage.
Yeah. And what year did that come out?
90 or
No,
something?
it was later than that. It was like 98, somewhere in there.
But you keep talking. I'm going to look it up.
And we've had many discussions about the issue of found footage. Back in those days, I mean, nobody carried around video cameras. Nobody had portable video cameras. So you really, really, really had to get over this concept of constantly being filmed.
Right. Tapes were expensive. Batteries didn't last that long.
You didn't have
cameras were expensive.
But nowadays, 15 years later, you now have a society where people...
1999, for the record.
So I was close. 16 years later, you have a world where people do film a lot of things.
They film a lot of things. They don't film every little moment, though, do they?
Yeah, the problem is that it's not like this.
Yeah.
So it's close. We are in...
I mean, they're literally like, I'm going to check some emails. I'm going to set this camera over here and capture it just in case I see anything good.
And they always have to mention, why are you taping this, blah, blah, blah. And you know what, Jared? You sort of have to understand that's what the film is.
My problem with the found film genre is that they don't even pretend that like somebody found this footage and they cobbled together this story from it. It's just an artifice now. It's just a way of telling the story.
Yeah, it's like
why don't you just tell a regular film?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's sort of like watching Modern Family, which
pretty much
is Modern Family is it a documentary? Right. What's going on here? I mean, it's sort of like that. This is a little bit more on the nose in terms of what it is. But yeah, where is this footage coming from?
At least
what's the point of it?
At least the early versions sort of gave you that impression that this was literally found footage that somebody found and like, oh, something really happened here. Let's show the story. Now it's just a technique. It's just
it's just another way of doing it to maybe save money and make it. I don't know, but
what they save money by making your cast the camera people?
Yeah, no, just the sense that it can be sloppy and it's sort of. It doesn't have to be a big budget thing. It can look lower budget, then you can put some big budget type effects in that to some degree. So you have to get over that.
I am over it. All right.
Yeah, I mean, but to accept the premise of the movie, you sort of have to say, okay, they do the best, and I'm not saying for this movie, but I'm saying in found footage films in general.
Yeah.
They do the best they can given the limitations of what they're dealing with. For me personally, I think they did an okay job with this film. I mean, as it being a found footage film and working within that.
Okay.
Knowing that this isn't some sort of documentary that you're watching. But at the same time, like you said earlier, do you record everything? Is every little thing caught? Can you get audio from all the way around across it's stuff.
I have a big problem with that too. The audio quality when you're being able to, you're probably 20 feet away zooming in and you're getting this pristine audio.
Yeah. The average,
most people aren't going to care about that because they're just going to enjoy it for what it is.
The average person doesn't, but this is what you do. This is what I'm a part of. And then that also flows really nicely into the technology aspect of the film. They spend a lot of time early in the film trying to be very clever and very smart in terms of building the time machine.
Right.
A lot of time. It wasn't, they didn't, I would say probably almost a good half of the movie, they weren't really time traveling. They were demoing and trying to put it together and building it up.
Finding a power source.
And it was, I said to myself during the film, it was too clever by half. If they would have ignored that, if they would have sort of got into the guts without talking too much about what the time machine is, try to establish that David is smart and his friends are smart, without hitting you over the head like, oh, this power converter flux capacitor, and oh, we need Jared.
Look at this cable. What is this? Oh, it's a VGA cable. Obsolescence by design. Oh, what we need is a GPU. Let's rip open the Xbox and cobble that together.
You crapped your pants.
They
didn't have to do that.
There's no credibility to what they're doing if you understand.
What they're doing is insane.
Basic, electronics that you can't just rip open an Xbox and plug a few things in and you've repurposed the GPU. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, it was frustrating.
There's weird things where it's hydrogen powered, but it also requires a battery. It just feels like they're just throwing a bunch of scientific concepts at the wall and hoping you don't notice too much that they really don't have anything solid there.
And, maybe they didn't want to draw a lot of comparisons to Back to the Future because there are, obviously it's a teenagers going back in time.
Yeah.
Not quite to the same degree where you're going back 30 years. I mean, the majority of the time travel in this film is within a matter of modern time,
Yeah, it's within months.
But so they're trying to say, okay, we don't want to be just, Marty McFly needed power to get back in time. We don't want to do just that. We need to make it more complex, which by making it complex, it made it less comprehensible and maybe less believable. Especially when you're doing found footage stuff, that's the idea, is that it has to feel like it's in the realm of possibility. That's what made Blair Witch Project successful. That's what made Cloverfield arguably successful, is that it had to feel like this could be happening.
Yeah.
When you start digging into the science of this stuff and putting it out there for people that have half a brain, it falls apart.
It's weird that they're, causing power outages and just, people aren't going to notice the noise. There's all kinds of things where it's like it's suspect that
the mom
they'd be getting away with it as long as they.
Yeah, they're doing all this stuff.
The mom is absent for most of the film.
She's only there when she needs to be.
She's got a lot of job interviews, but I don't think she does that many.
Yeah. So then the movie sort of takes a bit of a shift once they start getting into the time travel. They don't deal with the science part as much, and it's just more about the cause and effect and the relationships of the kids while they're sort of, and I really like that
and
part.
A lot of teenage wish fulfillment.
Like, okay, this
was like, I agree with you that the second act was a lot more.
Yeah, you could. I mean, it's because they limited what they could actually do.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, this is something that a teenager might think about doing, and they do, and they get away with it for the most part. I mean, nobody seems all that surprised that they're winning lotteries and sending food trucks to the school, and then it sort of gets to the third act, which is...
We get the turn.
The turn, which I don't know how much we should go into.
Yeah, let's leave that out. But let's just say it takes a darker turn.
And even that's not... The idea of what they're doing is not bad.
Yeah.
The motivation and why the main character did what he did is asinine to me. It makes no sense. The thing that he ends up going back to do... and the ripple effects that it has. And I'm not spoiling anything because you see it in the trailers, but it has really bad implications, which, number one, seems like the ripple would seem like it's too big, number one, but I think they're trying to make a point. But number two, what he went back to do and then deciding not to try to change that to get it to sort of reset things and, try to fix it piecemeal rather than taking care of business is crazy. And for someone as smart as he is, it's like he turned into a crazy person. Yeah. And I couldn't buy that part. That was sort of frustrating.
I don't disagree with you.
One other thing I'll talk about in terms of the science is that they have a different set of time travel rules in this movie than you would have like in Back to the Future.
There's always got to be a gotcha of some sort.
People can't intersect. Old Jared and new Jared can't intersect. Otherwise, you start getting problems. Which I'm cool with that. I don't know if there's any reasonable science behind it, but it's
as far as I know, we haven't invented time travel, so there's really no way to know.
We don't really know what we could do with that.
I think if you really wanted to get down to it, there's an idea that I've seen in other popular media where it's like you're still made of the same atoms, so your atoms can't exist in the same place twice.
Sure.
I guess maybe some quantum physicists out there would like to question that. Yeah. Maybe you can exist in two places at once.
Who knows? But I think when they do stuff like that they're not trying to break it down scientifically. I mean, it's just like, oh shit, we can't do this.
There's always got to be a fly in the ointment to some extent,
which is fine. I mean, I think we sort of saw that possibility could happen early. I mean, you sort of get a feeling for it. So, this is a really mixed bag. I felt like the acting was fine. They did as good as they could for being a teenage drama.
I think our lead actor was not very good.
You didn't like him?
I didn't buy him, especially when things got to be a little bit more emotional, dire. In the third act, he wasn't pulling it off for me.
Well, I liked his friends. I liked the girlfriend's character. I liked the sister for the most part. I mean, a lot of times she was behind the camera, so you didn't see her.
She didn't get to do a lot.
I really enjoyed that second act of the film. And
it was fun.
And it was interesting, and I even liked it when it sort of turned to that darker thing. I was telling Jared that there are certain, time-changing things that happen as they're jumping back and forth that just are not addressed. There are changes that are made, and we don't know why they were changed. Even one of the main changes with the basketball player breaking his leg, I didn't get it until they went back to show it, which had a major ripple effect on everything.
It feels like there are a lot of things were cut out. This film had been delayed from last year. Yep. And it feels like there were a lot of edits made, and I think some scenes probably didn't make the final cut, and the clarity probably suffers because of that. I was kind of hoping that as things started to change in their world, based on some of the things they wanted, I wanted it to go off the rails even more. I wanted there to be some big global shift or something to really, really push this out there. I realize that you probably can't do that with the kind of budget this film had, but that was my hope, and it didn't. It kind of kept the scale stayed smaller than I would have liked.
And see, I'm not as against that, because what kind of changes could these kids make? If that's what you're talking about, like butterfly effect,
sure.
And then the other,
I guess, given the amount of time that they went back, the changes are going to be relative to that. So,
or if you add like a big MacGuffin type of thing, where they go back in time and the sun starts heating up for no reason. At least at least they tried to explain the changes that they were making, and that was a huge part of it. Like, okay, we're making these changes, we're doing these things. How do we fix it? Okay, and I appreciated that. Actually,
I just like maybe not on a global scale, but maybe a little bit more of a shift. Everything was pretty much contained to high school life.
Sure,
and
which is for the audience.
Their community.
This was made for.
Although one of the kids' parents is a pilot who does international flights, apparently,
which has an impact. So, and then it ends a bit ambiguously, or at least maybe they don't intend it to be. They do. I mean, they don't. But there are other issues that happen that you'll have to see.
It's the ending doesn't necessarily. It doesn't give you any closure, and it doesn't. I don't know what to think about that ending. I'm not sure what my takeaway is.
I think the takeaway is found footage films like to be ambiguous.
Sure.
They don't like to give you a neat package.
Well, they didn't get everything. We don't get a complete picture. I mean, we recorded all of the things in between, but the very end part, obviously, they ran out of footage or something. I don't know.
Yeah, this film is a mixed bag. I will go on record as saying I love time travel stuff. I've read a number of books about it. I like movies that deal with it, and I feel like it did some things smartly. I think it did some things stupidly, and then there was a lot of middling stuff in between. Maybe if you're just a casual moviegoer and you don't really care about this type of subject matter, you can overlook a lot of it. But we're nerds, we're geeks, and we look for I mean, you're looking for. The smart ways they tie, different things together.
We're looking for internal logic. We're looking for consistency. We're looking to the evidence that the world was fully thought out.
And it wasn't quite there.
No.
Wasn't quite there. So let's give this thing a Scope score and then go home through the freezing rain.
The Scope score is 2 stars.
So 2 stars. I was saying to Jared off camera, I would like to give it more. I really would. I still think the concept, the core idea is smart.
Right.
It just was not executed consistently across the board.
And as I said before, it really feels like there's been kind of a hatchet job done in some of the editing.
Yep.
So, I don't know.
It might be kind of fun to go and read cut scenes and outtakes over at IMDb when this film sort of hits big to see what didn't make the cut, maybe the DVD or the Blu-ray.
I know there's a scene there supposedly watched plane crash, but then they took it out because because it was like a real plane crash they watched. They were actual people died, and the families of the victims were upset with it, so they ended up taking that out of the film. That was a trivia thing on IMDb.
I'll have to go look at that. So Project Almanac 2 stars. We feel how we feel.
We do.
Jared, tell our listeners and viewers how they can interact with us at this point.
You can like, comment, and subscribe right down below.
Perfect. So for Jared, I am Shane. This has been Scope Movie Review. We'll be back soon, hopefully, with a handful of great late winter, early spring movie reviews.
Gotta get the truck out before the big months hit.
Exactly. So, bye for now.
Ladies and gentlemen, we find ourselves once again at the end. I hope you've enjoyed our time together. I know I have. Fear not, Scope faithful. Days shall pass as if they were but a moment, and Jared, Adam, and Shane will return with another thrilling episode. Until then, send your comments to comments@thescopeshow.com or leave a voicemail message by dialing
612-21-SCOPE. That's 612-217-2673.
Thanks for listening, faithful fans. This is Tony Partington saying arrivederci. Tune in next time to another terrific edition of The Scope.